This is the Thrive Podcast with Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church. And now, Pastor Fred Jeff Smith.
Hi, this is Fred Jeff Smith, and I welcome you to another edition. I believe this is the 6th edition of the Thrive Podcast with the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church. Thrive is our acronym. Thrive stands for Transformative Thinking, Helps Ministry, Renewed Relationships, Invitation to Evangelism, Visionary Worship, and Excellence in Administration. I am very delighted today to have as our guest Pastor Dale Flowers, pastor of the New Sunlight Baptist Church of Baton Rouge and the Redwood Baptist Church of Slaughter, Louisiana, as well as the director of the Baptist Student Center, the Theodore Judson Jemison Baptist Student Center on the campus of Southern University. Pastor Flowers, glad to have you here with us today.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me here today.
Tell us about your ministry. Give us a background on who you are and how you came into the ministry here in Baton Rouge.
I am an original Baton Rouge resident, born and raised right. As a matter of fact, was in Cub Scouts right here at Shiloh when I was a little boy. Grew up at New Sunlight Baptist Church, baptized there by J.R. Williams. Left there my teenage years. My mom had a rule: if you live in my house, you're going to church on Sunday morning.
I understand
that was
rule
her
very
rule.
well.
So the only way you could get out is you had a job. So I went out and I got a job at the Sisley Family Steakhouse. And I volunteered to wash dishes on Sunday morning. Just so I wouldn't have
Just
to
to
go
keep from going to church
that
on
was
Sunday.
That was it. So
Okay.
I got out, and then I finally, as a young adult, I left the church. I moved away, went to California for a few years, and returned back. I joined New St. John Baptist Church under the leadership of W. Marshall Miles.
Yes, sir.
And I began to feel this call to work, and I knew that the Lord was calling me to preach, but I did not want to preach. So I made a deal, I thought, with the Lord. And I said, tell you what, I'll work with young people. So we began to work with a young man at New St. John, and I was having a great time there. And the Lord said, yeah, that's good, but that's not what I called you to do. So
Yes, sir.
I accepted that call, and I've been in ministry now since 1996. Preached my first sermon in January of 1996. Went on to New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary to receive my
alma
master's.
mater.
Yeah, great school,
Yes,
great
sir.
school. Got my master's of divinity and leadership from New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. Undergraduate, Southern University in mass communication. I've been now at New Sunlight. I was called over by Dr. J.R. Williams to be the youth minister.
Yes, sir.
And when he called me over, he sat me down in his office. He said, they calling you the youth minister, but you my assistant.
Yes, sir.
And whatever I tell you to do, that's what you do.
Yes, sir.
And I said exactly what you said. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And Dr. Williams is planning on retiring at the end of the year 2000, and the Lord called him home in June of 2000. And I didn't know, but he'd spoken with the deacons and asked that they would accept me as the next pastor. And
Yes,
they
sir.
got together and put it before the church. And 18 years later, I'm still the pastor of New Sunlight, very proud pastor of that congregation, right around the corner from you here
Yes,
in
sir.
South Baton Rouge.
Yes, sir.
And about 2 years ago, Redwood was looking for a pastor. I didn't know. I got a call, and they were looking, and their time was 11 o'clock as well. So I said, look, I'm at 11 o'clock. There's no way I can apply for this. And
Right.
they said, well, look, if we choose you, we'll actually move our service to 8 a.m. So I said, okay, I'll apply. And here we are.
Yes, sir.
They moved their service, and we have a wonderful time at Redwood. It's a wonderful congregation, just good people who love the Lord and serve the Lord. So I've got two wonderful congregations that I just love to death, and we're doing our best to represent God in a way that brings him glory and is helpful to those that he sends us to minister to.
Yes, sir. And you're working up at Southern. with
Correct.
college
I'm at
students.
Southern University. I'm the director of the T.J. Jemison Center there. Been there about a year now, and we're reaching the college kids as best we can. As a matter of fact, tomorrow we're going to be on campus. You got to reach them by the stomach sometimes.
Yes, sir.
We're going to be passing out jambalaya in the Union tomorrow.
That's great.
Just to introduce ourselves again to them, let them know what's going on at the Baptist Student Center,
Mm-hmm.
to get them over there. There's prayer, there's counseling, just a nice place to come in and study and whatnot. And we got Bible study on Wednesdays at 12 noon as well as 6 p.m. So we're just trying to minister to them as best we can, and not just the students, but the faculty and staff and everybody on the campus and in the North Baton Rouge area.
Yes, sir. Well, you keep yourself very busy, and
we do.
You're also a husband and a father.
Yes, sir.
And you're wearing a bunch of hats.
Yes, sir. My oldest daughter is a junior at Southern, music
sir.
major, and I'm so thankful that I didn't accept my call until I was 32 years old in ministry, but she knows where she belongs. She's
Yes.
in music. She's a beautiful voice. She's actually our musician at New Sunlight.
Yes, sir.
And she's just, God has gifted her with this gift of music, and she's doing it for His glory. Then I've got a 9-year-old, and my oldest is a junior in college, and my 9-year-old is a junior in elementary school. And
She's a delight. I love
yeah.
reading about you all's conversations
There are something.
on Facebook.
She keeps me on my feet.
Yeah.
She does.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And your older daughter, I've heard her sing when I've been to New Sunlight. She's a very talented young lady. So you are on the front line of civic involvement, social justice issues here in Baton Rouge. You didn't just get there yesterday. You've been on the front line. And I thought it would be good, because we spend a lot of our time here talking about social justice issues on this podcast. We spend a lot of our time talking about social justice issues. I thought it would be good to have someone who is actually doing the work in our community, to have an opportunity to talk about it. I know that your main focus right now is on McKinley High School and the debate that's going on there. But actually, we came to know each other a little bit better through the work that you were doing and the aftermath of the Alton Sterling shooting. Yes. Did you want to talk about that at all?
Sure, yeah. And again, you and I, kindred spirits in that area where we recognize that social justice is a part of what God calls us into. We recognize the importance of that spiritual aspect. Of course, when we leave here, we've got to make sure that spiritually we're lined up with God.
Yeah.
But once we're saved, there's more to life than that. And God's calling us to reach out in the community to be the difference makers. And it is my belief, this is just me now, but I believe that our community, the black community, is in the shape that it's in because the church has taken a back seat. Mm-hmm. When we were out front leading the way, that's when we made strides as a community. And I think that's what our church was founded on, the black church, to fight against injustice, to fight against the status quo, when the status quo isn't good for everyone. So that's my philosophy in ministry. We worked Alton Sterling. After that horrific incident where he was shot and killed by police officers, we're still working on that one. It's been a year and a half now. It's been over
19 months.
That's
still waiting to hear from the Attorney General as to whether or not any charges are going to be brought. 19 months, and he's still on paid administrative leave, Salamone and Lake, and it's just a travesty that this can go on this long, and no one seems to be motivated to move with any dispatch to bring some kind of remedy to this situation.
It's a sad situation for that family and for our community at large.
And I know that you post, because we post, and you get up early in the morning. I appreciate the fact that you get up as early as I do. We post every morning the day count.
That's right.
How many days it has been since this death, and the fact that nothing has taken place. And we do it not to bring glory to ourselves. We do it just to keep it in the forefront of the minds of the community, and to remind people, somebody who may be listening, reading, that that we're not completely silent, and we have not let this matter drop completely out of sight. Talk about McKinley High School and about the situation that exists there.
Yes, I am a proud graduate of McKinley High School, 1982. I'm currently the president of our Alumni Association. So we're working to ensure that McKinley continues to be the school that it is in our community. It's a school where we've graduated. We were today with Judge Pitcher, who's the first elected black judge in the city of Baton Rouge. Well, he's a McKinley graduate.
Yes, sir.
Earlier today, I was with Senator Joe Delpit, who's the first elected councilman and state rep and senator black in the city of Baton Rouge. He's a McKinley graduate. John Michael Guidry, Cleo Fields, and then business owners and leaders and other individuals. So we've got a rich history, but what we want to do is ensure that our future is just as rich.
Yes, sir.
And there's a tax that is on the ballot, will be on the ballot April 28th. That tax will bring in $1 billion to the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board. That $1 billion, there's a percentage, $75 million, that's going to go to truancy. There is another percentage, about 300 and some odd million, that's going to go to ensure that our teachers that they will remain at their current pay. It's about $4,000. If that does not pass, our teachers are going to lose about $4,000 a month, I think it is. And of course, when that happens, or it may be $4,000 a year. I think it's $4,000 a year. When that happens, those teachers are going to be leaving this parish.
Sure.
And then the third proposal is for construction. And that's about $716 million. And that's got to be divvied up, of course, between the various schools that are going to be updated, some torn down, some completely rebuilt, some just renovated. Mm-hmm. McKinley is on the list to be one of those schools that will receive some of these funds. The amount that we're told is from $30 to $35 million. They want to update the school, do some things, tear some buildings down, leave some buildings there, as well as add a junior high school on the Buchanan site. They'll tear that school down. Those students will go to U High, where a new campus will be built, and then they'll build a junior high school there, and that junior high will feed into McKinley, an actual junior high, not a middle school. I think you and I are probably junior high school guys,
right.
7th, 8th, 9th grade.
Right.
That's what this will be. It'll be 7th, 8th, 9th grade. Then the high school will be 10th, 11th, and 12th grade.
Okay.
And that will, of course, feed into McKinley. Well, they're talking again 30 to 35 million. Well, we've had two high schools recently built or rebuilt in the city of Baton Rouge, and both of those high schools are high schools that we compete with for students. That's Lee High School, which recently, I think as recent as last year, because this is the first year, it was rebuilt at a cost of over $50 million.
Yes.
Baton Rouge High School was rebuilt within the last 6 or 7 years at a cost of over $50 million. Now, we recognize that some of that, they went in and found some things, so you spend a little bit more money than maybe you intended to spend, in the beginning. But to come at us with $35 million when you've spent $50 on each of these schools, and we've got to compete with those schools, we're at a disadvantage now, we're going to be at a disadvantage then. If a parent comes to McKinley and I'm trying to get my child, my son or daughter, into a high school.
Yes, sir.
McKinley has great programs, great teachers, great administration. Let's look at it. Mm-hmm. I'm also going to visit Lee High School and Baton Rouge High School. I'm going to say these high schools have great programs, great teachers, great administration, and they've got great facilities.
Right.
And that will sell them on those schools. We're saying give us those same facilities and we'll compete. We'll compete with anybody in this city, in this state, but don't shortchange us and then expect us to do what other high schools are doing. And we're ready to compete. Mm-hmm. We just want to make sure that it's on an equal footing. We're not asking for more. We don't want to accept less. Same. That's all we're asking.
Makes sense. It makes perfect sense. If I'm not mistaken, McKinley High School is the third largest high school in the parish school system?
Correct. There are currently 1,200 students at McKinley High School.
1,200 students. And you can spend $54 million on one and $53 million on the other, but not $50 million
on two.
Yeah, because you're actually putting two schools
That's right.
onto one
That's
campus.
That's right.
It just doesn't seem to compute.
What do they say? A blind man can see.
Yeah.
The injustice here.
Yeah. And you talk about graduates. We're in the Charles T. Smith Library.
Of course.
And from his grave, he'd have a fit if I did not say.
Right.
Charles Smith is a 1948 graduate of McKinley High School.
That's right.
And I have two nieces that both graduated from McKinley High School. So while I'm not a product of McKinley runs through my blood as well, and it runs through the blood of several of the members of this church. So you've had meetings, discussions with the school board. Yes. Tell us about the progress of that. Share with us what you can.
I just came from a meeting, and what we put on the table to them, we've received their proposal, and we have now gone to them and said these are the things that we want. What we're asking for is one school. We're saying we don't need a junior high school. Let's have one school, 7th through 12th grade, not similar, but what they have at Northeast right now, 7th through 12th grade. One administration, one principal, and that'll be our school, McKinley High School. We're asking that they move up. Right now, McKinley is slotted to be built in the 5th or 6th year. There's an order in which they're going to rebuild these schools or build new schools. Right now, McKinley is slotted to be rebuilt or renovated in year 5 or year 6. Well, 5 or 6 years from now, Lehigh and Baton Child is going to be so far ahead of us that we're not going to be able to catch up. Right. So we're saying move us up to the first year, no later than the second year.
So timeline is important.
Oh, of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course. And of course it is. Of course it is. So we're saying move us up. Because if we remain here, we're going to fall further and further behind it, and we may never catch up. So that's what we're asking. We're also asking for programs. Currently, there are some great programs at McKinley High School. We want to keep each of those programs. There's gifted, there's talented, there's great scholars, there's ROTC, there's some other programs, special education. There's a dual track enrollment, and we want to keep all of those. But we also want to add a law studies program. We want to add a certified nurses aid program. We want to add a robotics program, and we're asking that ROTC move all the way down to 7th grade. And we're asking all of these programs to run throughout our school, from 7th grade to 12th grade. So these young people will have an opportunity to remain on the same track to graduate from a school with a diploma that they can do something with.
That would be a wonderful opportunity and something that's rare in this day and time, to have a group of kids that can stay together from grade 7 all the way through the end of their secondary education career. Is there any, and I'm asking because I honestly don't know, is there any relationship between McKinley High School and Louisiana State University? Because it's very close to LSU in geography. But I don't know, is there any relationship that exists between LSU and McKinley?
I think there is to some, I don't know exactly what, but I've heard and talked with some folks that students from LSU come over and work with McKinley students. I don't know if there's anything beyond that.
Okay. Well, if you could get LSU in your corner, LSU is a huge voice in this community. Yeah. You, as you said, you just came out of a meeting with school board administration. What do you think their response was to what you were asking?
They were very receptive to the programs, and they were receptive to the one school. They were not receptive to moving the timeline up because they say that they have this lined up and a progression that has to take place. But our argument is still, if you leave McKinley 5 years from now, where you're going to begin, we're going to be so far behind. We're losing students. We lost a third of our 9th grade class to Lee High School this year. We're going to lose another third and another third, and that's it. Yeah. And we want to ensure again that we're competing. Yeah. And academically we can compete. Technology we can't. There was a story that was told by a parent that her son, who's a McKinley student, went to Lee High School earlier this year because he's in robotics at McKinley High School. Went over to Lee High School and was in awe. Mm-hmm. Looked around like, wow, and came back. We don't have any of this at McKinley. Right. Why is this? And it just shows the disparity, between one school and another.
Yeah.
And we're not knocking Lehigh. We're saying give us the same thing
Sure.
that McKinley High.
Sure.
We're proud of what Lehigh is doing. We're proud of what Baton Rouge High is doing. But we can do the same thing if we're given what they've been given.
Sure. And at the end of the day, it's supposed to be about the children.
That's right.
And about giving every child in every part of the public school system the best opportunity to excel and achieve. So I wish you well. And I've said to you privately, I'll say through this podcast, I pledge my personal support and Shiloh's support in whatever way that we can offer support in your endeavor. I would hope that the school board would recognize that you do need the voters' approval for this tax to go forward.
We're hoping that as well.
And they might want to reconsider their position. Talk about expanding from McKinley into the larger arena of social justice issues. Talk about your perceptions of how we as African Americans can better leverage our influence in this community. I have said on this podcast, I've said in my church Bible studies, we don't match up with dollars. Mm-hmm. We can't compete dollar wise. Uh-huh. We don't match up when it comes to positions of power within this community.
Correct.
But we do have the leverage of the vote, and we do have the leverage of righteousness.
And we have to use
and that's where the theological aspect of this comes in. Share with us, if you don't mind, your perspective about what it is that we can leverage in these kinds of discussions and debates.
There's a book, Powernomics, by Claude Anderson. And in that book, he shares some very important points that I think and practices that if we could come together on one page, of course not all of us, but if enough of us could unite together behind one cause, I think we could achieve so much in this city. We could come together when it comes to some of the things that we've talked about is financing. We don't have as much money as some others, but we've got enough churches in Baton Rouge that if we would come together and put our money, we said, in one banking institution, and then go to that institution and say, hey, our money is in your bank now. We want these things done in our community, and we want you to finance. We're not asking you to go out on a limb and, finance folks who can't get financed elsewhere. But these people are ready. They've got a business plan. They're going to come to you. We're going to back them to ensure that our community is built by us, for us. I think when you get to that righteousness part, we recognize that righteousness and justice are one and the same.
Yes.
We've somehow separated righteousness from justice. They are one and the same, that we seek justice for everyone. I think that's what God calls us into. And I think when we live up to that and we live that out, we're going to be successful. Social justice is a part of our ministry as believers in Christ, be it every member of the church I'm talking about. But we have to have those leaders to be out front and show us the way and open our eyes to it and open our hearts to it. And I think the church has always been and will always be the catalyst to move us forward.
I tend to agree. I'm frustrated often because I know that there are segments of our community, and I can't just say it's all youth because not all of them are young. There are segments of our community that have estranged themselves, I'll put it that way, from the church, and quite honestly, don't have a whole lot of good to say about the church. I made mention in my 8 o'clock worship Sunday that I was reading comments that were on a Facebook site about a discussion about the relationship between crime in our community and the fact that there are so many churches in the Baton Rouge area. And I was very disheartened by some of the comments that were made by African American folk with regard to the African American church and African American clergy. And it strikes me that there is a sense of not only despair, but absolute bitterness that exists within certain segments. How do you think we can, as the church, respond to that?
And I really think it's on us. I don't think it's on them. I think we're the ones who have to reach out to change this. And I think we do it by showing compassion as Christ did. We do it by leading by example and not just preaching to them, but walking with them and talking with them and nurturing them. We got to recognize there's a generation. You and I were raised in church.
Right.
There's a generation now, maybe two generations, that I'll use the term unchurched. They don't have a relationship. Mom and dad didn't make them get up and go to, boy, you're going to Sunday school. You're going to worship. And they have no idea of what the church really is other than what they see on television.
Right.
And what they see on television oftentimes is a money grab.
Yeah.
And they see that and they think that every church on every corner is in it for the money.
Yeah.
Well, you and I both know that we could make
certainly not
a whole lot more money doing something
doing
else
other
with
things.
our lives.
That's right.
This is a call, and we're committed to it. Are there some folks that fleece the church? Yes. But that's not the majority.
Right.
The majority are out here. We're working hard. And then the other thing is some of us have got to get out of our comfort zones and get out of our churches, get out into the community again, walk with these young men and young ladies. I spend time 2 or 3 times a month just walking my community.
Right.
And there are individuals now who know me. You know, they know who I am. I was laughing. This was years ago, but I was outside in the parking lot with some of my members. And a young man rode by, on a bicycle. Hey, Reb, how you doing? And my members were like, you know him?
Yeah.
And my response was, you should know him.
Absolutely.
We're part of this community, and we've got to get out and show folks that we're not just in the community,
Yes.
but we're part of the community. And I think that trust has to be built, and it's on us. It's not on them. Some are going to accept it, some won't, but we've got to at least make the effort.
Yeah, I tend to agree that we do have to do more. I really wish that we had greater help from others within the church community. Here I go on my soapbox.
Oh, I agree.
Shiloh is a charter member, if I can use that terminology, of the 4th District Missionary Baptist Association, and I still maintain our membership with the association.
Yes.
But I am disheartened that as an association of 200 plus churches across 6 parishes, we have not used our collective voice, our leverage within our community to bring about, if not change, at least calling attention to the fact that changes need to be made. I often say to my folks in Bible study, it's our job to be David's Nathan. It's our job to go to the one in power and put our finger in his face and say, you are the man, and to demand change. And is there risk involved? Absolutely, there's risk involved. Will there perhaps be backlash? Of course, there will be. But we have an obligation. It's a calling. And I just feel like we're not doing enough in that area. Now, I was raised by a man who served as president of the association, believed in the association, and we would often get into debates about the association, and my attitude was, they're not doing anything, you can't fix anything from the outside, you have to be a part of it if you're going to make changes in it. Well, I'll be honest with you, over the last 5 years, I have distanced myself, and I'm starting to question myself with regard to that, because distancing might be personally convenient for me, but it doesn't do anything to rectify the problem. I don't believe in the formalized structure. I think that the model is broken and needs to be fixed. I much prefer when I can call people like you and Pastor Errol Domain and Pastor Tommy Gibson and some others to come together and without Robert's Rules of Order and without a formalized charter, people of goodwill and of similar mind and of similar heart and of similar theological attitude can come together and discuss the issues of the day and develop plans that we believe can help move our community forward. What's your attitude? I think I know the answer, but share with me. What's your attitude about the structure of our clergy and our churches?
Exactly what you're saying. I agree with it, and I've been thinking along those same lines lately. And it's the politics of it. That hey, we see what needs to be done, and this is what gets me time and time again. We got to go study something. We got to try. No, we know what the problem is,
right,
and we know what needs to be done.
Right.
It's already been studied. The answer's here. Let's move forward. But we want to spend so much time talking, and I would rather work at something than to talk about it. And that's my issue. But I've been thinking about those same things when it comes to the 4th District, about how do I become more involved, and when that involvement takes place, can it be the ministry that it should be? Because that many churches, that much power, when it's wielded properly,
correct,
can be a force in this community and in every parish. When we come in with that much power,
yes,
and we say this is what we want for our community, they're going to have to give it, because votes count.
Yeah.
And that's what you have there. But you got to use that, again, for righteousness and for justice for all.
Yes, I agree. You're a runner. One of the things that I've watched on your Facebook page is that you regularly, almost daily, put up a picture of you after you've run 5K or 6K or something like that. How'd you get into running?
I've been running, man, all of my life. I started running track of course, running since I was walking, I guess. But I started running track at Dufrock. I ran for Mr. Washington in 5th grade and 6th grade on the relay teams. Went to Westdale, ran there in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Went to Tara for 2 years before I actually went to McKinley. I went to Tara for 2 years and lettered in track at Tara High School. And then when I left Tara, I went to McKinley and I ran track there. And it's my time to relax. Of course, I'm not as fast as I was then.
The fact that you can still do it.
And that's what I say. It's not about the speed. I used to run for speed. I used to have times where I would run for speed. Other times I'd run for distance. That speed stuff is over.
I understand.
I just run for distance now.
Understand.
So if I can get a 5K in, I try and get out every other day, 3 to 4 times a week. And it clears my mind. I'm honestly talking to God out there. I've had times where I'm just talking and folks will see me in a couple of days. Reb, I saw you talking to yourself. I was having a conversation with the Lord.
I understand.
When we were talking.
I understand.
I enjoyed. I had a puppy given to me a couple of months now, back in December. I had a German Shepherd, my favorite dogs, what I've always owned. And about 3 years ago, I took him to the vet, said he'd been poisoned. I still don't believe to this day that someone in my neighborhood did that, but that's what the vet said. So I told this guy right across the street, he's not a member, Greg, lives right across the street from New Sunline. We talk all the time. Drove up to church one Sunday. He says, "Hey, Reb, I got a puppy for you." Hey, no, you don't. I said, I'll have him for you after worship. I say, no, you won't. I'm not ready for a puppy. So you give me a few days. So I got ready for him. He's a beautiful German Shepherd, solid black, nitro. He's 4 months old now, and I'm thinking that sometime midsummer, he'll be ready to join me.
He'll be ready to run with you, huh?
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to like it, but he'll be joining me on these runs.
That's wonderful.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Pastor Greg Coates, was a runner in school. I don't know
Yeah,
if Greg still
Greg
runs
was a
or
triple
not.
jumper at Capitol High School. A real good one, too.
Yeah.
Real good one.
Yeah. I was ahead of you guys. I actually was on my cross-country team at Baton Rouge High.
Oh, man.
And I threw the discus and the shot put. We were horrible. Okay.
Baton Rouge High had some great track teams back then.
Yeah, well, not mine. Ours was absolutely horrible.
Oh, man.
But I never enjoyed running. I hated it.
That was my thing.
If somebody didn't go out and make me run, I just wouldn't do it, which explains why I look like I look and you look like you look.
Well,
but now that I'm 56 years old and I'm starting to recognize that time is getting short, I ain't gonna run no more. Running day is over. But I do get out and walk every morning.
Yeah.
And I feel as good about my walk as you do about your run.
Good exercise. That's good. I love running. As a matter of fact, I went out for the football team at McKinley.
Okay.
And I had speed, but I couldn't catch the ball. I couldn't catch the ball. And I could catch, but I couldn't catch the ball that day. Pads and whatnot, the ball kept hitting. So Coach Turner, Albert Charles Turner, he said, that boy fast. He can't catch. So the next day, all of my pads were in the locker, and I passed by and waved at them. I was going to run around the lake. I said, I'm going to stick with what I know. And I love it. I do.
So do you ever run marathons, or have you run marathons?
No, that's not what I want to do. I just want to run far enough to say I got to run.
Okay.
I look at those guys, and more power to them with these 26 miles. I'm
like,
why would I run 26 miles?
I asked why would I run around the corner. That's a different question. But in order to be on the track team, back I'm talking 76 to 79. But in order to be on the track team, we had to run cross country, which I believe is 2.4 miles or something like that. And for us, the object was not to finish first. Wasn't no way I was going to finish first.
Yeah.
The object was just to finish.
That's right.
And I got pretty good at being able to at least finish.
Conditioning purpose.
And at least I wasn't last. I wasn't dragging up the end.
Now, there was a guy, he was a couple of years, Cleveland Davis.
Yeah.
He ran. Well, Cleveland ran real good.
Cleve was on our team.
That's what I'm saying. He ran there.
Well,
he ran.
Cleve was good.
Yeah. Cleve,
I wasn't good.
Yeah, Cleve was.
I think the best I ever did, I finished third in a discus throw one time, and I finished second in a javelin throw one time. And those are my huge claims to fame when it comes to tracking.
And the females were real good back then.
Yeah, they were.
Time. Baton Rouge High had, some outstanding girl track teams at that time. Yeah. And before you, there was Duke and Perkins, and there was Marvin. Those guys there, and Coach Holden's son, Jonathan. Yeah, man, those guys.
Now Jonathan was a wrestler too.
Yeah, was he?
And
was he?
Coach Holden tried to get me to go out for the wrestling team. And I went out. When I found out it wasn't like what I was watching on TV, I said, I don't want to do that.
We grew up 2 blocks. My mom still lives there. As a matter of fact, this year, she's been in her home 50 years.
Is that right?
St. Rose.
That's a blessing.
In 1968.
Yes, sir.
And we would go to Baton Rouge High, and Coach Holden would use us as his guinea pigs to wrestle his actual wrestlers.
Yeah.
And that's how we could play in the gym if we were guinea pigs for the wrestle. That's what we would do. We'd go over and, man, those guys would twist us all around.
Yes.
And then we'd say, okay, we can go play basketball now. So that was our trade-off back then.
That was wonderful times.
Yeah.
Wonderful times. You pastor in what is now called Mid-City.
Yes.
That's what this area is called, Mid-City. What do you see as being the major issues that affect this community?
And I grew up in this area. Again, my mom still lives in the house I grew up in. We used to be a working class community. Mm-hmm. Now we're a transient community. If you're a homeowner, you're an older homeowner, and when they either go on to be with the Lord or move to wherever they move, that home is not occupied by someone who's owning the home. It's normally a renter. Mm-hmm. And, of course, renters are here 1 month, which makes ministry hard for us, too, in this area. Because 1 week we'll go and evangelize at a home, And 3 weeks later, we knock on that same door, and that family's no longer there.
Right.
There used to be a time where there were, businesses thriving on every corner.
Right.
And now we don't have that. And I know that has affected our ministry tremendously, where we're transient, so we've got to find a way. This is our community, so we've got to reach it. We're a part of it, but we recognize that we may minister to one person one day who's our neighbor, and 2 months from now, he or she may no longer be our neighbor. So
one
that's
of the
hard on
things
us.
that I constantly lament is the focus that seems to be on national politics as opposed to local politics and local issues. When I hear, and I guess I'm as guilty as anybody else, I watch Smbc all the time. But when I hear statistics like 4.1% or 3.9% unemployment nationally, they don't talk about the fact that for African Americans, unemployment is twice what it is
Easily.
for white Americans. And when it comes down to local unemployment, there are segments of our community right in this area where unemployment for African Americans is 20%.
Easily.
And nobody heightens that. Nobody talks about that. The lack of opportunity, the lack of business, the lack of motivation. To be fair, the lack of a nuclear family structure in many cases contributes to a situation where people are transient. People aren't crazy. They don't want to be transient.
That's right.
They want the same things that everybody else wants. But it's difficult for them to lock in and become established under those circumstances. And I wish that more light was being shined on those realities. There's a segment of this community that just believes that everybody who doesn't have a job doesn't have a job because they're lazy and because they don't want to work. It's because there's no opportunity out there. And because there's a lack of education. You're talking about McKinley High School. Park Elementary School was supposed to have been rebuilt 10 years ago with dedicated funds to be rebuilt in Easy Town 10 years ago, right behind Capitol High School, if you want to know where I'm talking about, right off Fuquay. And 10 years later, they have not turned over the first piece of dirt, and the school board is trying to find a way to divert that money into other projects and leave Park Elementary the way it is, or shutter it and do something else. These things contribute to the very problems that we have in our community.
That's right.
And the church needs to speak up and address that.
We have to. I mean, that's our position. We are those who speak truth to power. We represent Moses, and we've got to speak to Pharaoh. And we've got quite a few pharaohs in our community today that we have to speak to by faith, recognizing that God is going to do what God says He's going to do. You speak of Park Elementary. Out of that meeting that we just came out of, they showed us their slide for Park Elementary. They're going to spend $16 million there and make it a state-of-the-art school to house 400 students. Again, $16 million to build a state-of-the-art school.
When $24 million was already dedicated to it?
There you go.
So what happens to the other $8 million?
It just disappeared.
Do they think that you're stupid? Do they think that you can't do simple math?
I think
24 dedicated. We're going to spend 16.
That's right.
16 from 24 leaves 8. What you doing with the other $8 million?
That's right. That's right. And now what's going to be left out of this?
Yeah.
What are these students not going to have because $8 million disappeared?
Yeah. It's tragic. It's tragic.
And it is.
Well, I appreciate you coming by today. I
Thank you for
appreciate
having
you
me.
spending the time with us today. In closing, I'm trying to make this sound like we're professional folk. In closing, is there anything that you'd like to add, that you'd like to speak to?
No, thank you. We're going to keep working as a team to do the best we can for the community in which God has placed us. This opportunity is very. I'm very appreciative of this opportunity to come and share, and I appreciate your work in the community, be it both spiritual as well as physical, getting your hands dirty, ensuring that we move forward as a community. And we talk about that posting of the daily, how we are now.
Yes, sir.
And I picked that up from you. I got that from you, and I picked
you.
it up and ran with it.
Thank you.
And I thank you for bringing that to our attention. And we're just trying to, move forward as a church. I'm going to leave here and go. Got time to get a jog in. So we're good. We're good.
Well, you go get a jog, and I'm going to get something to eat. Thank you so much, Pastor. I appreciate it. Thank you all for watching, and we'll be back again next time.